If you've been playing Minecraft for a while, you've probably built one of these, and I don't have to tell you how useful water elevators can be. But I'm betting I can still show you some tweaks or variations you can use that maybe you haven't seen before. And if you're new to the game, then don't pass up the chance to learn how you can get to and from your diamond mine in seconds. Since this video is aimed at both new and experienced players, please feel free to use the chapters to jump around to the topics that matter most to you. Here's what we'll cover today. First, we'll spend a few minutes on a quick tutorial showing how to build a basic water elevator. This design is simple on Java, but I'll also include tips on how it can be built in Bedrock as well. After that, we'll tour some alternative layouts that you can choose instead, if they work better for your situation and experience. All designs are possible in both editions. Lastly, we'll take a look at some concepts behind water elevators that will open up both functional and aesthetic upgrades for your builds, including what I consider to be the new biggest flex in Minecraft survival play. Yes, possibly more than a netherite beacon. Keep in mind that all designs require a block of soul sand, which you'll need to get from the nether, but the nether is also the one dimension where you won't be able to build these. So let's get started and recreate this common design right here. For this basic water elevator, you'll need 1 block of soul sand, 1 piece of kelp, 3 signs, although fence gates will also work, 2 water sources, which could be done with 1 bucket, bone meal, how much is based off of how deep or how high you're going to be building, mining and digging materials. For Bedrock, the kelp and bone meal trick won't work, but we'll discuss alternatives in just a moment. Begin by digging a 1x3 hole as deep as you need to go. If you encounter caves on the way down, you will need to close up walls around your shaft and clear out any water within the shaft if those caves happen to be flooded. When you reach your desired level, clear out an area at least a couple blocks wide on one of the 3 long sides. This will be where you will enter and exit on the bottom level. Face your open 1x3 shaft and place down 3 signs like this. If you're using fence gates, make sure to open them afterward. Also, on Bedrock Edition, you can even substitute buttons for the signs. Now on the side where you place the 2 signs, dig out 1 block lower and replace it with your soul sand. This will be the upward shaft. If you're on Bedrock, this is where you'll change things up, so bear with me and we'll go over that in a moment. Now we need to fill in the middle. Since you've dug down this far, you should have more than enough blocks to do this. But you can use just about anything as long as it doesn't allow water to pass through it. Stand in the middle of the shaft and begin pillaring up, with a quick stop once you are about 3 blocks up to add water above the sign on the downward side. Then continue pillaring all the way to the top. I don't recommend doing this at night because you might get caught off guard by mobs at the top and knocked back into the hole. Be careful not to fall. When you reach the top, you should now have 2 separate 1x1 shafts going down to your bottom layer. Make sure to remember which side you place the water in. If you need to refill your bucket, go do that now. Otherwise, just place your second water source block at the very top of the shaft that is over the soul sand. The signs at the bottom will keep the water from flowing out. However many blocks deep your shaft is how many bone meal you'll need. You can hop back down the empty side and fall safely through the water below. Once the flowing water on the other side has reached the bottom, place down your kelp on the soul sand. Then hold down your use button on the kelp with your bone meal in hand until the kelp is no longer emitting particles. That means it's done growing. The grown kelp will actually convert all flowing water blocks into source blocks, and then by breaking the bottom piece of kelp, all the kelp will be removed and the water sources will turn into a bubble column. You can now ride your water to the top rapidly and without losing any air. At the top, I also prefer to place a trapdoor and a button down over the downward hole. This way the hole stays covered when I'm not using it. Adding a block next to the shaft can help you position yourself for the drop. So this is the basic design that is common for Java and I use all the time, but can we do this on Bedrock? Yes. Unfortunately, we just can't use the kelp and bone meal trick, since kelp can't be planted on soul sand, and it has a limit to how much it can be bone mealed. But we can still build the same setup with a different technique, or we could choose a slightly different design. Let's start with 2 ways you can make the same shaft, as long as you have the right resources. First, if you have a water breathing potion, swap out the bone meal for additional kelp pieces, and bring along a block of dirt, sand, or gravel. Note, if you haven't started brewing yet, another way to get a water-breathing potion is from a buried treasure chest. All the initial steps are still the same, but when you reach the bottom, instead of placing soul sand, place down dirt, sand, or gravel. Then after dropping water from the top of the hole, return to the bottom and drink your potion. Then swim up the flowing water column, stacking kelp below you until you reach the top. From there, you can jump back down and break the kelp just like before, and then replace the block under the water with your soul sand. Alternatively, if you have found or created a silk touch tool, collect ice blocks to fill the upside of the shaft. These need to be regular ice, not packed ice or blue ice. You'll follow all the initial steps the same as before, but once you fill the middle pillar to the top and return back down, you'll pillar a second time above the soul sand block, this time using the ice. Then return to the bottom and break the ice, without using silk touch, to convert it to water. When you step into the water, the bubble column will already be in effect, pushing you up against the ice above you, but also keeping your air meter full, so you can look upward and hold down the attack destroy button to right it up, converting ice into water as you go. This is a little slower, but it is safe and simple. Of course, if you want to build a water elevator on Bedrock and don't have water-breathing potions or ice blocks, you could try one of these two versions. Next up, we have an L-shaped shaft, and here I need to give a quick shout out to StormyWolf, who introduced me to this design because I wasn't familiar with it until recently, and it was Stormy who showed it to me while playing on a Bedrock server. The primary advantage of this design is how easy it is to set up compared to the dual shaft over there without having access to the kelp and bone meal trick. So for this one, you want to start by digging out your shaft in an L shape instead of a 1x3. Then when you reach the bottom, you place soul sand at one side of the L and water sources down in the other two blocks. I personally like to put slabs in the bottom, which makes it easier to transition in and out of them. And in the corner, you can work your way back up using ladders. Now in this case, I put my exit on the backward side here so that I can walk directly into the water stream as opposed to having the exit over here. So I have signs at the bottom instead. But by using these ladders, you can then place your kelp up the water stream once it is placed without worrying about your air at all. And like the other designs, if you so choose, you can add a little trapdoor up top. For this one, you will start going down the ladder. You will need to move out of it. You can move back at any point or transition from the ladder back into the bubble column. Another potential design that you could use is the single shaft. This is created by just digging a 1x2 all the way down to where you need to go. And as you are digging down, placing signs on one side as you go down. This is better on Bedrock because you can use buttons instead, which takes a lot less resources. But again, as with all these, you can do them in either edition. That said, this one would be a little bit tedious to do without having another entry or exit already down into your destination, as you will need to find a way to get back up to place your water. You could potentially do that as you go down, but that could get messy in worlds where you have caves and whatnot that you're digging through. At the bottom, just make sure that you block off the water stream here with a couple of signs, fence gates, whatever. And then, as always, have your soul sand block down below and your water source block. In my case, I like having the slab here. But some advantages for this one, again, it's very compact, which means it's actually really wonderful if you change your mind. I'm heading up. Oh, I forgot something. Hold on. I'll go right back down. You don't need to ride it all the way back up, or likewise, if you are coming down and you decide you don't need to go down yet, you can maneuver right back into the stream and go back up. As with all of these, it is completely possible to cover one side and line yourself up here with a button for easy falling. Right now, with all of these, I've also built above ground versions so that you can see what they look like without having the stone around them. So instead, these are glass, And for example, here is our basic dual shaft version. We'll go ahead and ride this up. And part of the reasons I've done it this way is to show you that these do not actually need to be used just for going down into the mines. You could use this instead for access to some kind of floating base or island up in the sky. Lots of different potential uses for water elevators. Now, if you are a Minecraft veteran, you might also be familiar with the honey block elevator. Basically, this is just a hidden water elevator. Honey block's hitbox, although they show as a full block, actually leave a small pixel of overlap that you can walk into. So by having a soul sand and bubble column behind the honey blocks, you can move in and out of a single shaft by simply placing yourself in the corner or removing yourself from the corner. And then you can use the quick exit strategy like I do here by having the water a couple of blocks off the ground so that you don't have to fall into it and wade out of it. And again, here is that version underground. And one advantage to this, of course, is a single block entry and exit. The obvious major downside here is the effort needed to collect honey blocks. So this is not going to be an early game elevator for anyone. This would take quite some time, presumably a honey farm to collect. So, what about an alternative? Well, walls work. We can do the exact same thing by digging out just a little bit lower. I definitely recommend going one block deeper with your soul sand and your water sources and then placing slabs over here. And the reason for that is as you drop, your walls are going to allow you to hit this block here. So if it's not submerged in water, if this was a full block, you would take fall damage coming down. But otherwise, you can operate it the same way. Since you can't fit through two walls diagonally, you can ride the corner of the bubble column all the way up and then just drop down that single shaft. So that's another easy version of a single shaft elevator. So here is one of the things that may actually surprise you, even for some experienced players. That same concept that we use with the honey blocks or the walls can actually be applied to a few other items as well. For example, the new decorated pots actually make for a pretty decent looking elevator shaft, although you will see the water through a little bit. But you could decorate these with the different pot shirts and actually have pictures all the way up, and you'd use the same concept that we did with the walls down below, and you can ride the corner of the water up with pots. You can do this with chests, although I don't know why you'd ever want to, but just so you know, it's possible. It's even possible with cakes. Just don't accidentally break them. If you break the bottom one, this whole thing will come tumbling down. But here's the new biggest flex in Minecraft, in my opinion, because you see, if we did this on all four sides, we could create a water elevator out of heavy cores. And I'm not quite sure, but depending on the size of your elevator, I have a feeling that that might take longer than collecting enough netherite for a netherite beacon. And then, in fact, Grindstone's hitbox also allows for this to happen, but only if they are placed in their normal vertical orientation. If you try to make it look nice and do this horizontal, sticking out of the wall orientation, I think this would look really cool for a water elevator, but the hitbox no longer allows you to reach the water. So keep that in mind. This one is probably another novelty one that you're not likely to use, but it is possible. That said, a few moments ago we also talked about using these to reach higher up places. So what if you wanted to use them inside your home or a base? Any block that allows you to essentially build pillars like so where their hitboxes are smaller than walls, you can walk right in from the diagonal. So you can use things like fence posts or chains, glass panes of any color. So you could color these in and make that kind of neat right there. Iron bars also work. By manipulating trapdoors, you could sneak in here and create a self-contained column. That looks kind of neat, and we can close this up if we want. And if you wanted, you could take the bottom 2 layers of that, and instead of using trapdoors, you could place down doors and create this neat little water elevator closet. To place the doors, however, you will need to stand inside that block, so before you place the soul sand down. And then, much like the other thin items there, lightning rods. Copper rods. What are these called again? Hold on, let's find out. They're called lightning rods. Now, another thing you could do to improve your water elevator that I don't often see done, but I actually use in my own hardcore world, is adding stops on the way down, on the way up. You can do both as long as you understand the mechanics, which I'll go over those concepts here in just a sec. But let me show you what I've done with this one. So in this case, let's imagine that way down there at the bottom we wanted to have a diamond mine, but then somewhere around level 0, level 16, whatever you choose, you wanted to have something else, an exit for iron or lapis or whatnot. Well, we could do that, and in this particular one, you can see I've actually wired in a little bit of redstone, and I've put in some lights, and let's test it out. So as you can see here, I've changed up the placement of my trapdoor and block, and that is because I'm going to be holding forward as soon as I see light and hear sound. And that allows me to exit off here. I built this one with entry and exit on both sides. You don't have to do that. Again, the concept is the same here, blocking the water. And then we need a certain amount of gap on either side in order to be able to do this. So let's go all the way down to the bottom now. Alright. Now, assuming we want to go back up, it is a little bit more difficult to wire in redstone for sound going up. There's probably a way to do it. It's not really my strength. So I just used light on this one. But same thing, once we see the light, we know to start holding down a button. And we can exit in this middle layer instead of making our way all the way to the top. So this is a pretty easy concept, but again, I don't see it very often, and this is where it gets interesting. As far as going up, a 2.5 block gap is enough at any distance, because once you're in the bubble column, your speed is constant. It doesn't change, so it doesn't matter how far up you are. As long as you're holding the direction you need to exit, 2.5 blocks will be enough. So we walk in here, for example, and we hold this, we'll end up on this platform instead of all the way up top here out of our shaft here. Now down, though, down is a little bit more complicated. Okay, listen, I have a confession to make. I just talked through this entire last section without hitting record, so now I have to do it again. Here we go. Alright, so now that we're in survival mode, let's take a look at these. This one here is about a 100 block drop. And if we go ahead and teleport up top and hold down against the edge here, we will land safely and take no damage. If we hadn't made it, we would have fallen through on this red wool. With 2 blocks of water, we can go up to about 150 blocks. So let's show that real quick. And we're safe. We did it. Now, rather than showing every single one, I will just point out that on Java Edition, 5 blocks of water is just about what you need to do the maximum drop that you would do in survival. This isn't your terminal velocity, but to have a higher shaft than that, you would need to be modded, or you would need to be dropping from a teleported location or something. So in survival mode, this should be about the longest drop. Not this one that I've done, but yeah, 5 blocks of water is about enough to do that. This is roughly what you would need for any type of drop. Bear in mind that you need that 3-block opening in order to do it. There is an interesting situation with Bedrock here. I did a lot of testing with this just to make sure that my information was accurate, and what I found was that Bedrock differs wildly. Not just from Java, but from itself. Now that is likely because of how the coding of the game works. Even on a single-player world, it operates as though you are on a server. It is connected to the internet. So not just your computer speed, but also your internet ping is going to matter. So, for example, when I was testing this, sometimes I was able to hit a drop of 150 blocks with a single bucket of water and exit easily, and other times I would end up with like 50 blocks and I'd miss it. So that's going to depend a lot on what's going on with your connection. So I would definitely recommend that if you're on Bedrock Edition, that you err on the side of caution and use extra water, maybe a couple buckets more than what you think you will need. Another side note here with Java, one of the reasons you see this weird jump from 150 to 180, there's only 30 block difference there with 2 to 3 buckets of water, right? But then there's a 80 block difference from 3 to 4 buckets of water. This is because every single time I tested it, 3 buckets of water had this really weird quirk where I would actually take a little bit of fall damage coming out of this hole, even though that shouldn't happen. That should not happen with this setup at all. But going any higher than 180 blocks with 3 water buckets would actually take a tick of damage. So I'm not sure exactly why that happens, but that is why I have specifically lowered this instead of, this probably would go up to 210 or something like that, but I don't recommend it. Whenever you can, just err on the side of caution. Alright, well that was a lot to squeeze into one video, so let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully you learned something new today. Especially for you guys that are experienced players, please let me know if I taught you something new today, or had you already discovered all these details. And hopefully with knowledge of these concepts and mechanics, you can create your own unique version of a water elevator for your own world or your own server as you see fit. Anyway, as always, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you next time.